healthcare system is like a tangled maze that we are constantly trying to find our way around. The United States is an industrialized nation that neglects universal healthcare insurance for its citizens and has just been deteriorating for the past 6 years. Even though our nation spends twice as much on healthcare than a median industrialized nation, the system still is not close to attaining the best quality care. There is a mass number of Americans that are uninsured, and in order to see improvements on uninsured Americans, there must be better solutions to this problem. One of the solutions are that the federal government should make the healthcare system a higher priority and should become a universal healthcare. If the government were to cover funds universally, there would most likely be a requirement for tax increases. This solution could be more prone to having interactions with the judicial branch, since the branch aids in criminal licensing and civil malpractice disputes related to healthcare. Another solution is a targeted healthcare tax credit system that does not only depend on the occurrence of where one is employed. I believe that this option is better for our nation because the healthcare system affects less than 45 million Americans that are uninsured today. For the people that do have insurance, they are paying high premiums and high taxes because of the increased cost of the free-willed care that is provided to the uninsured. This should be one of the focuses for Congress and the state legislators, since healthcare does seem to be a recurring topic. They should aim to help the working families with tax credits or have subsidies for the poor in order to help offset the cost of health insurance. This problem can easily be addressed through the solution, and a few reasons to support the solution would be because it could build support for health services and avoid the social stigma of Medicaid. Out of the two solutions, a targeted healthcare tax credit system seems like an idea that could be achieved if it was made a high priority, as healthcare should be. The legislative branch should create proper laws that are a safeguard to their public health, and from that, they can also develop an annual budget. But this can interact with the executive branch's suggestions. The executive branch can implement and enforce the regulations on healthcare, appoint the heads of federal agencies, and propose an annual budget to Congress. This solution would decrease the chances of having major interactions with the judicial branch. If the federal government and the three branches of government took a step further into improving health services after seeing the amount of uninsured people, the rates of Americans dying each year could decrease. An estimated nearly 45,000 people die each year as a result of not being insured. Also, the health system as of right now requires high out-of-pocket costs and tax for services that someone is not even obtaining. This solution could help the lower and middle class and build more support for the health services. A terrorist act can be committed by a single individual, group, or even the government. Organizations such as the United Nations have had a difficult time drawing up policies against terrorism. Terrorism are unlike criminals, but claim to be dedicated to a higher cause and do not believe in personal advantage. Most people think that terrorists are just bombers, but they have many other methods also. As newer generations are approached, terrorism seems as though it is beginning to become one of society's constant problems. Terrorism is a vast problem in national security, and there needs to be a solution to this recurring problem. Terrorism is an act that can put civilians in great danger. This should be a top priority for the U.S. because it is in the pursuit of political aims. Currently, the U.S. is struggling to keep allied in a fight against ISIS in Syria. U.S. forces are in Syria under authorization to fight terrorism, and this problem needs a solution. A possible solution is to combat terrorism that can understand the diverse, evolving threats that this country faces. All the government capabilities should assemble in order to strengthen our domestic and international partnership in the fight. As terrorist tactics continue to evolve, the government should keep their pace. The country must be vigilant against any new types of terrorist recruitment or terrorist attacks, as well as being engaged in the communities that are more likely at risk of being targeted by the terrorist recruiters. Another solution in order to prevent terrorism is the Homeland Security Department's efforts to prevent terrorism, a risk-based layered approach to security in the passenger and cargo transportation systems and at the borders and ports of entry. To defeat terrorism, the U.S. needs the best possible solution, which would be the combat terrorism strategy. A global effort against ISIS, which is a terrorist group, was started by President Obama. Although it has lost its hold, Trump continues the same approach in targeting this terrorist group. But he has also been stoking fear at home while alienating the country's partners and allies, the very communities and partner nations that we would need to stop terrorists. This strategy would work best because if all government capabilities were brought together instead of the president having increasingly asserted control over the national security and reduced the power of the legislative branch. Each branch can oversee the others through checks and balances and maintain equal control while the president makes foreign policy through treaties with the other nations, appoint ambassadors, and serve as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. These executive branch powers are limited by those of the legislative branch. Congress can impose the taxes that are provided for defense, and the Senate would ratify the president's treaties and appoint the ambassador. The judiciary branch can oversee the two branches. With this strategy, if the federal system works better together to protect the nation's security against terrorism, then they will be able to safeguard the civil liberties of citizens when they are threatened.